Hello, hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Let Fear Bounce. I am Kim Langling, your host, and I am so happy that you're deciding to spend just a small part of your day with myself today and my special guest this week, Brenda Do. Welcome, Brenda.
Thank you. So glad to be here. So thanks, Kim.
I've been looking forward to this conversation. Now, Brenda, as a Chinese girl growing up in the 1970s America, Brenda noticed that none of the books at school and in the libraries featured characters who looked like her. And even at that young age, the lack of diversity made her feel excluded. Worse, it planted a seed that she wasn't as good as the kids pictured in all of the books. So, in her inaugural children's book, It's Okay Not to Know, Brenda intentionally created inclusive characters that all children can relate to. The stories feature whimsical characters not defined by race, gender, socioeconomic status, or physical ability. And as a seasoned copywriter, Brenda expertly distills complex social emotional learning themes into accessible narratives. Now, I am so excited to learn more about this book that you wrote, and it was released in 2022. So
hmm
it's been out there for a couple of years, and I hope it's doing well. But where can folks find it? We're just going to jump right on that. Where can they find that book?
They can find it on my website, brendado.com. And then they can also find it on Amazon and in any of their bookstores nearby. So if they don't see it on the shelves, just ask them and they can order it really quickly.
Awesome. Awesome. So, okay, a young girl growing up in the 70s, you noticed that none of the books in the school and in the libraries featured characters who looked like you. Now, I don't look like you. And I never thought of that growing up. And
Yeah.
that's just being honest.
hmm
I grew up in a very rural, small town where pretty much everybody looked the same.
hmm
So I like having folks such as yourself that are from a completely different background and culture than mine. So I can learn, but I also love giving a platform that you can share. So that's why I was really excited about you coming on and sharing about this book and how you grew up. And that feeling that you weren't as good as the kids pictured in the books. Now, of course, that's not true. We all know that. But at that age, it's very easy for those things to take root and stick with you for a long time. Is that
hmm
what happened with you?
It is. Yeah. And first of all, I applaud you for being curious enough to try to understand people from a different perspective. Most people don't, so good on you for doing that. And thank you for the platform for allowing us to share. Um, I didn't consciously realize I didn't feel as good. Yeah, at sometimes I did, when because here you are in kindergarten. For me, English is a second language. So I didn't speak the language. I didn't understand what was going on. Culturally, everybody had a different a way of doing things, and so I just felt like a fish out of water. And then I was as my friend would put it, the only chocolate chip in the cookie at school. So
Well,
that added to it too, because I was in a small town and no one knew what to do with me. So when I was growing up, looking at all the books, looking at those kids at school, not having the blonde hair, not having the pot roast in the in the kitchen, I didn't know what to figure myself. I just felt odd and I didn't belong. And like most kids, if you don't feel like you belong, then you feel like something's wrong with you. And then you start feeling that not enoughness. So, you know how a lot of kids they want to fit in, right? So they try to be like the other kids. Well, I can only do that to a certain point because, I'm wearing a different look. So, so that's where that came from. Um, and I would say it did affect me in the way where I'm outgoing to a point, but I'm also a very driven person. So, I've started 7 businesses, I've done all this other kind of stuff. When I have a goal, I hit it. If that's just how I work. But at the same time, at the back of my mind, in my subconscious mind, there's always something pulling me back. Or I'm being driven towards something because I need to prove myself. That's a horrible way to live. Because you're always thinking, well, if I once I get that award, they'll know that I'm smart. Or once I make that, that role at work, I get that promotion, they'll know that I'm worthy. But you're always looking outside of yourself for your worth instead of realizing it's always been inside. You don't need that external accolades to tell you what you're worth. Because if you're always looking, you're never going to feel satisfied.
And you're never going to find.
Exactly. Yeah, because you're always chasing.
You're
It's a
cheating, and
very
then yeah, sometimes I mean, I don't know, maybe you need to sit back, not you, but in general,
Mhm.
sit back and say, what is it I'm actually looking for?
Yeah,
What am I working so hard? Really, really, what am I working so hard for? Because at the end of the day, who cares what anybody else thinks?
exactly. And I used to have people say that to me all the time because now growing up Chinese, the old school Chinese mentality is it's all about the collective. And
Okay.
so they're always saying, well, what would so and so think? Or what would other people think of us if you did that? Or if you look like that, like for example, and I'm in the 1970s, right? And I was not allowed to wear jeans because my mom was very proper. So I couldn't wear jeans at school. She goes, you look like a worker. So if you wore jeans, what would other people think of us? And
Oh,
he was
yeah.
always worried about what other people thought of you. And that was the message that I got when I was being raised. So then the whole idea of saying, well, I don't care what other people think, that's very American. That's very independent. And then so it went against what I was taught. So
Yeah.
then growing up, in my 30s, we're like growing way up. I had to teach myself, okay, it really doesn't matter what other people say. It
Oh,
doesn't
back
matter.
when you were younger, what a confusing time.
Hmm.
What a
Yeah.
confusing time that must have been. Because I don't know, and I'm honestly saying I know really nothing of your culture.
Hmm.
So, as you said, just that little bit when you were growing up, you weren't allowed to wear jeans, or you didn't have the pot roast on Sundays,
Hmm.
you know. Um, so share a little bit about your culture. So not only I can understand a little bit, but the listeners can too.
Okay. Well, okay.
From your growing up, from the culture that you were
Yeah.
raised in.
Okay. So I can't say that I was typical, but for my generation and as an immigrant's child, because I'm second generation in the US. And then so my parents immigrated here and in their 30s and then had their family. And then so that's why their English wasn't very good. So that's why I grew up speaking Chinese and I didn't realize until I went to school. I was like, oh, that's not how we speak in the world. Gosh. And I didn't have any kids in the neighborhood who would play with us because we were the only ethnic family in the entire neighborhood. So everyone thought we were weird. And then so I didn't realize how insular my world was until I went to kindergarten. And then in kindergarten, what was crazy was that we didn't have English as a second language ESL training back then. So it was either sink or swim.
Yeah.
And so here I'm sitting there going, what is going on? Because it's a whole different language. And then the kids, and then I remember the principal coming to our house one day after a few days of school, because I was really excited about going to school. And she told my mom, your kids can't come into school anymore, go to school anymore until they learn English. So we got kicked out. And
Well,
I
where are you
had,
supposed to learn it unless it's at school?
oh, I know. This is the 70s. Oh,
Oh goodness, I know. I grew up in
I
this, I
know.
grew up in the same era. I grew up in the same era. So, but wow.
Yeah. So then we got kicked out of school. And so I remember sitting in front of the TV watching Sesame Street and what was the other one? Electric Company. I don't know if you remember
Electric
that.
company.
Yeah.
Wow, forgot
And
all about that.
I know that was a time, huh? And that's how I figured it out. And then we went right back to school really quick. So it took a few weeks. And then we went right back to school and I had to start figuring things out. And then so in the meantime, I've got this cultural situation going on where I'm trying to learn America. And basically I'm trying to learn white America, right? And how I'm supposed to be because there was no diversity over there in that school or in the entire city. And then my mom and dad at the same time, my dad was working like crazy, so he was hardly home. My mom, she was holding on to China and how she was raised. And she was raised, this is before communism. She was raised very bourgeois, very yeah, private tutors and all other kind of stuff. So she had a certain expectation of how girls should be, and then also how a proper child should be, which is very quiet, You're supposed to come out of the womb being perfect, knowing everything about the world and getting straight A's. That's just bare minimum, you know, and maybe be a concert level pianist or a violinist. Yeah, just for
Oh,
kicks. Yeah,
well, okay.
that's it. And your only acceptable professions are being a doctor or being an engineer. If you're really stupid, you could be an accountant. So, she didn't like lawyers, so we weren't allowed to be that. So boy, did I disappoint her when I became a freelance writer.
Oh,
So could you imagine that?
well, you must have been just described then to her. You know?
She just does, she still to this day, uh, I'm in my 50s, right? And so to this day, she still goes, ask me, can you pay your rent? Because I don't know if you have a job. What do you do?
Oh,
So I go,
yeah,
Mom, you mean my mortgage? And yeah, I'm fine.
right.
So,
Yeah, how interesting. How 'cause I find that fascinating because it's not anything I know. And I know how you said there was no diversity, in the city that you grew up in anywhere, or even in that school for that matter. People fear what they don't know and what they don't understand. And our parents were raised a certain way, so they were doing only what they knew. And just see, I don't know, maybe I'm being mean or judgmental, but it just seemed like there's certain time periods in life that were very, very, very close-minded.
mhm, yeah.
And in the end, it just turned out to be hurtful and a lot of times tragic.
Yes, very true. And you're right. We fear what we don't know and what we're not comfortable with. Did you ever see that movie, The Wild Robot?
No,
Oh,
because I think it'll make me cry.
oh, you're gonna cry in a happy way. It's a
Are
lovely
you
film.
sure?
Yes. Okay, trust.
Because
That's
sometimes
as
I'm
some.
like, I don't feel like crying.
Well, you know what it is? It's okay. I cry very easily. And
So
as
do
someone
I.
someone wants because we're very empathetic. That's why. And empathetic people, like for example, someone once said to me, "Oh my gosh, you can cry on a tampon commercial." Because of that person. I was like, you know what? If someone cried on screen, I would cry too. Yeah. I don't need to
Yeah,
know what's going on because I just feel.
Folgers coffee commercials.
I know. That was such a good cup. I know.
And the long lost child walking in the front door and surprising mom while she's having a cup of coffee, especially at Christmas time.
Oh yeah. Oh geez, and you put on fatigues because they just came off in the military
I
tour duty. And you're
know.
like, oh my gosh.
Folgers had some really good commercials in the day, didn't they? I think well, if they make you cry, you don't forget them,
That's true. That's true.
you know?
And it's a good cry. But the wild robot's all about that. It's about people or the animals, society judging something that they're not familiar with, so they automatically consider them bad. They call them a monster. But then the whole message is it's all about we're all together, and by working together and looking at each other through love instead of judgment, that we realize we're all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
You
so
know
it's a
what?
beautiful movie.
Then maybe more people need to now see, I understand that concept.
Mm-hmm.
Seems like a lot of folks don't. Um,
Exactly.
and probably between you and I, we could solve the world's problem in half
Yeah.
an hour.
Well, you know what? The answer is so simple, but we just don't get it. And the answer is just it's all love. No matter what
Yes,
the
you're right.
problem is, it's all love.
The answer is simple, and it's not that people don't get it, they don't want to,
Yeah.
because
Yep.
there's just too much power involved, greed, money, all the things that at the end of your days will not matter a whit.
That's true. And that is so true. We
It
have
won't
all this
matter.
baggage that we put on ourselves
I
with
know
the
all that
woulda,
stuff
coulda,
that
shouldas and stuff like that. It's just
right,
it's
all the
it's all
stuff that you
junk.
mentioned earlier, what you're
Hmm.
chasing.
Hmm.
If I do this, I'll be better. If I do this, they'll see that I'm worthy.
Hmm.
All of that stuff, we just, like you just said, all that baggage we put on ourselves, that gets heavy,
Hmm. Yeah.
and you're in your 50s, I'm in my 50s. I know I still carry some stuff, and then I'll take it off, and then I pick it back up, and then I take it off and pick it
Yeah.
back up. I'm thinking if I carried all of the stuff from when I was younger to today, it'd be like, well, would I be able to even stand upright?
Hmm.
you
That's
know?
true. And
That's
it's good that you recognize when you actually take it off, and then also when you pick it back up and you realize, ooh, I picked that back up again. I can take it back off
yeah.
because it's always a choice. And most people are not self-aware enough to make that choice. And the whole idea is when we're talking about it's all love, it all starts with loving yourself first. It's all self-love. And the message in the book is very similar to that because it's teaching kids how to overcome adversity or challenges by being curious and being compassionate. They're learning to go, instead of judging themselves, saying, oh, I'm not good enough to do this, or I'm not as smart as the other kid, and blah, 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 right? Instead of judging themselves and giving up or getting frustrated, instead they go, ooh, how can I do it? They're curious. They're
I like how
expansive.
you said that they become curious and compassionate.
Yeah, because they
I love
don't
that. The two
hurt
C's.
themselves. Two C's. And the two C's for a happy life. Curious
Yeah,
and compassionate.
there's
Because that's what
another
you
coffee
are.
cup. There's another coffee cup for you.
Yeah.
See, look
Man,
at
we
you
should.
have two now, and you're going to be a millionaire. And I'll say, I knew her when.
No, we'd split it. You get a
Okay,
cup, I get a
even
cup.
better.
Yeah,
So
but
tell
that's what
us
it comes
about,
down
when
to.
did this idea for the book pop into your head? When did you decide, you know what? I'm going to try and if people don't want to educate themselves, I'll educate them. I'm going to write a book for kids.
Well, first, to be fair, I'm not saying anything that no one's ever heard before. I'm just saying it differently. Yeah, because sometimes we just need to hear it differently, just in order to finally get
I
it.
agree. I
Yeah.
agree.
And then so what happened was years ago, my little nephew, I was at his mom and dad's house, and we were cleaning up after dinner, and he was, I think, 8 or 9, something like that, somewhere between 8 and 10, fuzzy memory. So we were between 8 and 10 at the time. He's helping me put away the leftovers, and he had a container in his hand. The lid wasn't on it tightly enough. And then so he accidentally dropped it. When he did, food was all over the place, splattered all over the floor, all on the sides of the cabinets. It was just a mess. But his first reaction was, "Oh man, I'm so stupid." And he just, and my heart hurt just seeing that reaction. And I thought about it and I was like, his parents aren't the kind of parents who would constantly tell him, oh, you're so dumb, you're this and that. They're not like that. So I'm wondering, how did he pick up that reaction? Instead of going, oops, and then helping to clean it up, he instantly felt like he wasn't worthy. He judged himself. He felt less than, right? And then I had another situation where his little sister, she said some, I know she did something that she wasn't supposed to, so I gave her a chance to fess up. And I asked her, "Do you know what happened here?" And then she looked at me and she goes, "No." And then I know her heart. She's not lying to lie because she's a bad manipulative child. She's lying because she knows that if she fessed up to it, I would think that she was bad. Therefore, she's not as lovable. And so there's judgment. So with him, he thought he wasn't lovable because he made a mistake. So I'm wondering, where does that come from? Now, by trade, I am a copywriter. And so my whole profession is all about looking at the root cause of how people think and why they think the way they do. So then the copywriter in me kicks in. I start looking at social emotional learning. I start looking at growth mindset, history and all that kind of stuff, like the work of Carol Dweck. She's amazing. And then, so who coined the phrase growth mindset? And I start looking at studies and stuff like that. And then I start looking at myself because to me, everything happens for a reason. And a lot of times there are lessons that I need to learn as well. So then I start looking around and I realize, well, what happens is well-meaning adults usually give kids the message of judgment that they're not good enough or lovable enough unless they do really well. So we put the A papers on the refrigerator, but we don't put the C's on there. We reward people for their achievements and not their efforts. And then so we don't sit at the dinner table and very excitedly ask the kids, what did you fail at today? We never do that, do we? Instead, we go, what did you do well today? How'd you do at school? How'd you do at your track meet? Did you get that award, for whatever, right? How'd you do in the spelling bee? We ask those kind of questions because they're ranked. And then so the kids start coming up with these messages in their little brains, and they go, "Oh, well, if unless I have an A paper or unless I get this ribbon, I'm not good enough. Therefore, I'm not lovable." And then they start judging and they start feeling that suppression. Then they start growing up. And when they grow up, they're always chasing that same thing of not enoughness and trying to prove themselves. So I live in the Western Washington. So we're the land of high tech. And everyone here, like, the whole thing with what Meta was doing was where they were saying, okay, you got to break fast, break things fast. That way you can learn quickly. But if you're going to be in this high tech world, you're not going to break things as fast as you think you're going to, because there's a little part of you as an adult who's still that little kid going, I can't be wrong, because then they're going to think I'm bad or I'm stupid. I'll get fired or I'll get whatever, I'll get demoted. So they're going to push themselves to a certain level, but not as expansive as they possibly could, because they stay in their lane. And that's what happens with these kids. They stay in their lane. And then I'm thinking to myself, that's sad, because we all have so much to offer the world. You don't need to solve world peace, world hunger, anything like that. You can just be the best freaking neighbor in the world who a kid
Right.
walks to and feels safe in, house that they feel safe in. It doesn't have to be on a world stage what you do. However, you're here for a purpose, and you can't be your true full self if there's a part being held back because you don't think that you should be heard, or you're not good enough, or your idea isn't amazing enough, or whatever it happens to be, is because you're too
I
busy limiting.
love everything you're saying.
Oh, thank you.
You're saying like be the best freaking neighbor. And I'm constantly saying just be a nugget of hope right where you are.
Yeah. And I love that. That's so
Right,
true.
right where you're at. And I'm constantly saying on this show, I can't change the whole world. I'm one person. But I can change a small part of my small slice of the world.
Hmm.
And just think if everyone did that,
Hmm.
what a completely different world it would be.
Hmm. And
You
you
know?
ripple it out, because
Right.
you might start in your corner of the Northeast, but you're rippling it out with the people that you're speaking with and the people who are listening to your beautiful podcast. Those nuggets of hope are powerful. One of my
They
favorite is
are.
one of your past guests, and she was saying, "Remember, you're somebody's Oprah." I think it was something like that.
You're
I
right.
love that one.
Yeah. I'm not, yes. And I can't remember her name. You're right. That wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
That was a more recent guest. Yeah. And I love talking to folks like from different countries, or you're completely on a different coast than I am. So we've got the entire country in between us right now.
Hmm.
And just think if everybody, I mean, so we're covering the whole country right now.
I know. Hello, y'all.
You know, we're covering it
Yeah.
all. I'm tossing a nugget of hope your way. You're tossing it my way. That's crisscrossing the entire country. So
That's
come on,
powerful.
folks.
That's powerful. And
Yeah.
that's my whole goal of the book itself, is to uplift. So my goal is to uplift 100 million children. That the whole message, though, is kind of like a Trojan horse, because I am intending that the adults who read it are reminded to give themselves the compassion and love that they want the kids to have as well.
That was
And the
going to be one
whole
of my
like,
questions.
yeah.
In what way did you subtly gear it towards the adults? Because they're the ones who buy the books. They're the ones who typically read them to the children.
Hmm.
But also, what's the age range for this book?
It's a picture book, so it's 2 to 6.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. This is really young, because you're never too
well,
young
that's
to
very
learn.
moldable right there.
Mm-hmm. Because that's
And
where we learn most of our beliefs, is from basically they've proven actually from inception or inaugural till 7 years old.
yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
it is amazing. So how did you weave? Now, of course, your background as a writer, copywriter, that is very, very helpful, I'm sure. But how did you weave that in so the parents might maybe be reading that going, oh, oh, those
I
little
don't
light
think.
bulb moments that might have sparked as they're reading to their child.
I don't know. I didn't consciously weave it in. I just sat back after I finished and wrote, "Oh yeah, this is good for the adults. It's really for them." I mean, I would love it if it HR Yeah, for a large corporation. Okay, I'm putting it out there, universe. Listen to me. I go, okay, so an HR for a large corporation would order a copy for all of their employees, right? Because this is something that you should know. Because one of the messages that are also in there is, and then my illustrator loved this part the most. It was because the line is about not knowing is like getting a present, right? And then it's also when you're there's a scene in there where you're actually the protagonist Bink is giving the present to another creature because that creature didn't know something, was having a hard time. So it was learning that once you learn compassion and love for yourself and you stop judging yourself, you really stop judging others. So then you're able to be more compassionate and help them in need. So you're uplifting. Everyone is uplifting together. So I'm hoping that when the adults read it, yeah, I know we gotta do the happy dance because when the adults read it, they're gonna go, "Hey, I'm trying to teach my kid to uplift, and they're gonna help others." I was like, "Wait, what can I do at work? What can I do in my neighborhood? What can I do at the store instead of cutting someone off in a parking lot? That kind of
I
stuff."
am telling you, I wrote a whole book called Nuggets of Hope,
Yes.
and it's talking about only mine's geared towards adults, and yours is geared towards children, but the adults are going to get something out of it too.
Hmm.
Now, how awesome that we even met.
I know. See, that's what I always believe that we all call each other in because we're all connected.
I think that because everything you're saying, I have said in different words in this book about, you can be, and I always just, my phrase is nugget of hope by
Hmm.
just simply smiling at a stranger, complimenting a
Hmm.
stranger, holding the door, being the best freaking neighbor you can be in that neighborhood,
Yeah.
all those little things. Because I get asked, well, you hand out actual nuggets of hope. What can I do? I'm like, smile at someone.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost a dime to be kind.
Yep. Oh, there's a nice one. There's a mug right
Yeah, well,
there.
I've got that one written down on my list of T-shirts to make. Yeah, it doesn't cost a dime to be kind, and in this crazy, crazy world, there are
Hmm.
so many beautiful, wonderful people and
Hmm.
things going on, but it's overshadowed by whatever you see on social media, on television. There's nothing wrong with cutting all that stuff out for a while.
I totally agree. I totally agree. I was just talking to a friend of mine yesterday, and we were both said, "Yeah, no, we don't watch the news. We'll scan the headlines online." And she just goes, "You know what? I still get 7 out of 10 on the New York Times, whatever test at the end of the week." She goes, "I'm fine. I'm not missing out on anything."
Yeah. Now
Because
I
just
quit.
scanning the headlines. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty much. I scan the headlines. I got rid of TV, so
Mm-hmm.
I got rid of cable. So if I want to watch anything, I stream it, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times I don't want to watch anything. So
Yeah.
I read a lot. I've always been a really voracious reader since I was young. That I read 2, 3 books a week, and that's what I do in the evening instead of mindlessly scrolling. Sometimes you do, but lately it's like, I have zero interest in being on social media
Mm-hmm.
to personally see what's going on. I use it for my book, you
Mm-hmm.
know, stuff, marketing type stuff like that. But to be on there and spend any time on there personally, there's literally nothing of interest because it's all divisive.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to participate in making the world more divided.
Perfect. See, you're conscious enough to know that because it doesn't feel right because the vibration is so low.
And
And
it just, you end up getting angry.
yeah, and then you
I
fall
got so
into the
angry last
drama.
night. I'm going, why did I just spend 15 minutes reading this and all the comments? What am I doing? I got so angry and I'm like, I'm deleting that person. I'm unfriending that, And I'm going, oh my gosh, Kim, let that go. Gotta let it bounce.
Let it
Gotta
bounce.
let it bounce, man. Because if you let that stuff
Hmm.
land,
Hmm.
you're doing yourself a huge disservice because you're just making yourself miserable.
Exactly. And
And
the
all
thing
those
is,
people out there, they're not thinking about you.
exactly. And it's all a choice. And I love how you said that. You're doing it to yourself. You're making yourself miserable. You have a choice. Shut it off. Right? Turn
Yes.
on something that lifts you up. And people ask, well, then aren't you kind of being a Pollyanna? Yeah. And
No.
no, you're choosing how you want to vibrate out in the world. You're choosing to focus. I focus on love. When people go, well, how do you feel about, what's happening in the world? I was like, I'm focusing on what I want, that people all come together with love, and people are all, blah, blah, blah. So I focus on that because we have enough of the other stuff that we don't want. The anger, the, divisiveness, everything that you're talking about. We have enough of that. I don't need to feed into that. So I'm
Right.
going to feed into a new bubble of happiness. And I'm going to
I've
have
had
that. I
so
see that
many
growing.
and you've probably had this too, people that try and maybe pull you into conversations
Hmm.
that they're just trying to get their opinion or agenda out and they want you to agree. And if you don't,
Hmm.
they're going to be angry. You know that that's coming.
Hmm.
You can just feel it. At least I can. So I've found myself for the last year and a half, because really it's no one's opinion. It's no one's business what my opinions are, who I voted for, any of that.
Hmm.
Those are my choices to make. And I'm not ever going to shove my choices or my opinions down someone else's throat. That's not my job,
Hmm.
you know, and that's not what we're here for. We're not
Exactly.
on this planet to do that. But I've often said, there are three things I will not talk about because I actually still want to keep you as a friend. It's politics, religion, and abortion. I will not
Hmm.
speak of any of those
Hmm.
because they never will end in a quiet, calm conversation, regardless of what my opinions or stance are on any of them, because I'm not sharing them, so you don't know what they are.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Yeah.
but I've had to say that to people and just say, I'm not participating in this.
Hmm.
I'm not. And then I'll be like, here's a nugget of hope. Go get yourself a coffee and settle down.
Yeah.
You know, it's just come on, kids, pull up your big girl pants and your big boy pants.
Yeah.
Take all that emotion out of it. Take
Hmm.
all the emotion out of that, of what, all those globs of darkness you're constantly throwing out. Take all the emotion out of it and then really step back and look. Is that what you want your world to be? The stuff that you're spewing. That's what you want
Hmm.
your world to look like. Ugh,
Oh,
why?
I know.
Yucky.
It is. And there's so many people who are so caught in the drama and they've given up hope, that they feel powerless. And that's, to me, that's another thing that I want to help people realize is you
Yes.
have the power. You're not powerless. Just as you kept doing, you're all talking about choice. That's your power, the power of choice. No one can do anything to you. No one can think for you. You allowed them to think for you, or you give your
Right.
power away when you say, well, there's nothing I can do, the world's going to hell. And I was talking to somebody who's 20 something, 22. I mean, crazy young. Well, to me it's crazy young,
To us,
so
yeah.
a kid, right? So
Yeah.
so I was talking to a 22-year-old, and he goes, I have no hope for our future, my generation is blah blah, and what's going on with society is blah blah, and he just goes, there's no hope. And I was like, I feel joy, I feel this and that. I go, that's what I'm choosing to focus on. And he just goes, well, there is no joy. And I was like, okay, well then there won't be in your world.
Right.
It's a choice.
He's choosing not to have it or feel it or see it or even look for it.
Exactly. I was like, okay, well, that's gonna suck for the rest of your life because this
Yeah.
is as
Well,
good
and
as
that
it gets for you
really,
now.
I don't think people realize just what they're doing to themselves, you know?
Exactly.
And I raised my daughter, and I know I used this phrase with her numerous times as she was growing up. She's now in her mid 30s, married, has started her own family. I'm always like, never be part of the sheeple.
Mm,
Never blindly follow anyone.
good for you.
If anything, lead.
Yes.
Lead by good example, but never be part of the sheeple,
Hmm.
the group that's just blindly following someone. Never.
Yeah, because it's what everyone else is doing. It's how it always was. And that's something that I remember telling someone one
Doesn't mean it
time.
was always right or good.
Exactly. And I told him the same thing. I was like, it's because it's always been that way doesn't mean it was right. So
Right.
you have a choice. Do you want to continue the wrong, or do you want to go a different path?
Right.
So
By
yeah.
golly. See, there we go. We just solved the world's problems in 35 minutes.
Love
Now, if
people,
people
just
would just
love.
listen,
I know. Not just listen, do.
that's
Because,
right. That's
yeah, there's
right.
no trying. You just do it.
Right. Yeah. So don't just hear it, but don't just listen. You've got to hear it and feel it and then get out there and do something good with it.
Yeah, just get over yourself. Get over your stuff. I mean, sometimes you just got to picture, like when you started talking about picking up baggage, I just picture like a really heavy coat. I'm like, yeah, doesn't feel good anymore. Taking
Yeah.
that off. Let it, I hear it
Who
drop to
needs
the
that
ground.
old, heavy, wool, itchy coat?
Yeah,
You know,
you
you can
don't need
take
it.
that off sometime, and by golly, there's a lot of brightness and color outside when you pull yourself out of that tunnel.
Yes, very true. Very true.
There's a lot happening out here that's good.
Yeah. And then
So
you start seeing more
come
of
on
it.
out of the tunnel, folks. Come out, be with us where it's colorful and it's good.
I know. Sun shining, birds are singing, it's all good.
That's right.
Flowers are all out.
Oh, the angels are singing. All of that's going on.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get ready to wrap up because time has flown.
Oh,
So let folks know where they can find you, your book, and all that good stuff.
okay. They can find me at brendado.com, and Do is spelled D-O, real short. They can find my book there. You can also order it online through my website, but also through Amazon if you choose. And then also you can go to your local bookstore or go to bookshop.org and support your favorite indie bookstore.
Awesome. Awesome. So do you have anything, new coming out? Do you have anything on the back burner that's like simmering and you're getting excited to work on that?
Not yet. I figure it'll come when it comes.
I've always
Because
wanted to write a children's book, but I've had some ideas, but then I'm like, it was never so strong that I had to get it out. I'm like, maybe I'm not supposed to
mhm.
at this time.
Yeah, you're supposed to write your adult book. Well,
And
not that way.
I just wrote I'm not
A
an
book for
adult.
adults. Oh, okay. That could be taken
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah. Children's book.
I
Actually,
just.
children's books, they actually intimidate me more than writing a fiction book.
Oh, why is that?
I don't know. Because your story has to be so short and so succinct,
Uh-huh.
depending upon the age group that you're going for a children's
Yeah.
book. How many words? So say you do 500 words for an entire book, and then you need an illustrator. I don't know. My brain starts. It's like, oh, then you need an illustrator, and then you need this, and then you need that, and I don't want to do all this stuff through AI, and that's really expensive. And then you talk yourself right out of it.
Yeah, see, that's the fear coming in.
I know.
I'm glad you caught yourself.
Yes, I
Let
did. I
that
got
bounce.
myself. Oh, and I talked myself around. So, well, this has
That's
been
cool.
so awesome, Brenda. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being my guest. I ask all of my guests to please toss out a nugget of hope before we close out. So, what would your nugget of hope be for the listeners today?
My negative hope is a lot of times people wonder, what is my purpose in life? And then they go through all of this stress and angst and going through webinars and everything else and paying lots of money sometimes to figure that out. And it's really, really simple. And it's just to be happy, because we make it so hard to be happy. But if once you are, you realize how easy your life, rest of your life can be. You still have issues because we're still in this 3D world. We still are humans. However, you get through them more easily. And then you can also, when you, just like what you're doing, you radiate that happiness to others and you help uplift them as well. We're all here to help uplift each other. So be happy. That's really all you got to do. Even it starts with just that one smile that you give a stranger today when you're passing the street. If that's all you do today, that's fine. Tomorrow, smile at two people, you
Yeah,
know? Or just maybe turn down the social media for an hour, turn it off.
take a walk.
Take a
Yeah,
walk, yeah. Look at a flower, do whatever it takes, pet your dog, whatever it takes to make you happy. Because that's the vibration you give yourself, and that's also the vibration you're giving the rest of the world. And we could use a lot more of it.
exactly. So sometimes it's hard, but you do have to open up your eyes.
Yeah, that's true.
Take those blinders off so you can see the goodness.
Yes. And be willing to see the goodness. And be
Right.
willing to forgive yourself for not seeing certain things. Or to be holding on to that coat that was too heavy, weighing you down. Forgiving yourself for that and just taking it off, because now you know now. All you have is now. And then if you mess up now, okay, that's okay. You still have now. Oh, you don't like that one? Okay, there's now. There's always now. So long as you're breathing, it's not too late.
That's
And
right.
that's all I say. And if being happy is just making cookies for your neighbor, or being happy is going into your garden and having the biggest vegetable patch you can create, fine. I mean, Everyone's happy is different. As long as you're happy, that's all that counts.
We went way
No,
over
for
time.
real this time. We mean it. We're signing off.
For real this time. Brenda, thank you once again for being my guest. This has been an absolute blessing and true pleasure to have you as my guest today. So thank you.
Thank you. I had so much fun. Thank you. Thank you for what you do and for who you are.
Thank you. And the same. I'm tossing that right back at you.
I am catching it.
Yay. And I hope everybody out there is catching what we're throwing down here for the last 45 minutes.
Catch it. It's free. It's
That's
free.
right. It's free. That's right. Happiness is free. All right, everybody out there, thank you so much for sharing part of your day with myself and Brenda today. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did. Everybody be well, stay well, and above all, be blessed. This is Kim Langling, your host of Let Fear Bounce.
Kindness. It's simple, powerful, and free. Yet, it holds the extraordinary ability to change someone's day or even their life. In the book, Nuggets of Hope, Cultivate Kindness, available on Amazon, you'll find stories of spreading kindness through simple acts. Let's make the world a little brighter together. Order your copy of Nuggets of Hope, Cultivate Kindness on Amazon.
Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode of Let Fear Bounce. Your time is precious, and I am so grateful that you chose to spend just a small part of it with myself and my guest today. If you've enjoyed today's conversation, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss our weekly nuggets of hope and inspiration. And remember, folks, let fear bounce, because you've got this. So until next time, folks, keep your light shining bright.